Imagine applying for a job. You know the drill, right? You carefully craft your cover letter, you tweak your resume, and you click submit. And then you do it again, and again, and again. The emotional fatigue of job hunting is something almost all of us have felt at some point. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're taking a step back. We're going to look at this deeply personal experience through a purely objective, completely data-driven mindset. So now imagine doing that 828 times over the course of a single year. Every application, every interview, every rejection, and every unanswered application was meticulously tracked in a spreadsheet. And no, not just because someone really loves spreadsheets, but because after a while of doing this, a very simple question started to emerge. And that question is, what actually happens during a modern job search? You see, most of us experience job searching, well, emotionally. We feel hopeful right after submitting an application, we're incredibly disappointed after a rejection, and we're just plain confused when we hear absolutely nothing at all. But emotions don't always tell the full story. Data, on the other hand, sometimes does. So let's start with the numbers. Over a period of roughly 1 year, 828 applications were submitted, and those 828 shots taken, they resulted in just 22 interviews. The math here is frankly brutal. That's an interview rate of approximately 2.6%. To put that into perspective, out of every 100 applications sent out into the universe, about 97 did not become interviews. Some got formal rejection emails, sure, but a massive chunk received no response at all. And that leads us to our first major insight here, the black box. Silence is more common than rejection. For most job seekers out there, deafening corporate silence is way more common than formal rejection. It's something we kind of know intuitively, right? But actually seeing it reflected in the numbers makes it feel totally different. Because silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty creates stories. When humans don't have information, we naturally fill in the gaps. We tell ourselves, maybe my CV isn't good enough, or maybe the market is just terrible right now, or maybe my salary expectations are way too high. The problem is, without data, all of those explanations are literally just guesses. Now, one of the most interesting discoveries here was that job searching isn't purely a numbers game. At first, the strategy was pretty simple: apply broadly. The thinking was straightforward. More applications should naturally create more opportunities. And okay, to some extent that's true. But over time, another pattern emerged. Applications that closely matched existing skills and experience were significantly more likely to generate responses. The highest quality matches consistently outperformed that high-volume spray and pray approach. I know that sounds completely obvious, but it is so easy to forget when you're staring at dozens of open positions and wondering whether you should just apply to all of them. The data suggested something absolutely crucial here. Volume matters, yes, but relevance matters more. Another fascinating lesson popped up when looking at the emotional side of the process. Imagine receiving 5 rejection emails in a single week. It feels terrible, it feels deeply personal, it basically feels like failure. But when those exact same 5 rejections are viewed as part of a giant data set containing hundreds of applications, they begin to look completely different. They're no longer these extraordinary, devastating events. They're simply expected events. They are part of the baseline. And honestly, that shift in perspective really matters. Because look, statistics don't magically remove disappointment. But what they can do is reduce the tendency to interpret every single setback as evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It protects your mental energy. The spreadsheet also extracted a much broader philosophical lesson, one that goes way beyond resumes and cover letters. Consistency almost always beats intensity. Think about it. A few days of intense motivation followed by weeks of total inactivity rarely produce meaningful results. A sustainable, consistent system tends to outperform those short-lived emotional bursts of effort. And that is true for careers, it's true for finances, it's true for health. Honestly, it's true for pretty much every long-term goal. So perhaps the biggest lesson here wasn't actually about interviews or recruiters or hiring managers at all. It was about evidence. You see, when we don't measure something, we naturally tend to rely on assumptions. And sure, some assumptions are totally accurate, but others really aren't. The real challenge is that without data, it's incredibly difficult to tell the difference between the two. Tracking 828 applications didn't magically solve the problem. It didn't instantly guarantee a job. But what it actually did was replace all of that exhausting guesswork with actionable facts. And having evidence is just a much, much better place to start. And really, this is the whole idea behind the Alex Analyzes philosophy, taking real-world experiences and treating them like data sets, looking for patterns, questioning our assumptions, and using data to better understand work, money, health, travel, and just our everyday decisions. Because sometimes the most incredible insights aren't locked away inside massive corporate databases. Sometimes they're hidden right inside ordinary experiences that nobody thought to measure. And all it takes to uncover them is a spreadsheet, a little bit of curiosity, and a willingness to look beyond the stories we constantly tell ourselves. Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative question. If tracking data can take the emotional weight out of something as stressful as the job hunt, what else can it decode for us? For our next explainer, we're going to dive into another deeply emotional topic. How much money do you actually need to live comfortably? Think about your own assumptions, and next time, we'll look at the data.